We're getting so close to the end of the year where there's a lot to look forward to check up what amazing records have held up to being some of the best, what ones have been some of the worst, and also we have an event called Christmas. There's a lot of good stuff coming at the end of the year, and I'm quite looking forward to it. But yep, this is another album of the month video, and I'm going to be going through the worst to the alright albums to the best. So let's start off with the worst. So to start off the worst albums, we have Pixies, The Night the Zombies Came. Honestly, since the reunion, I don't think Pixies has really been pushing up their best stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, Doggerel is a decent album, and there is some interesting ideas they can bring to the table, but stuff like the Doolittle or Surfer Rosa era, even Bossa Nova, is completely gone at this point. This just feels like a very watered down, dull, bare-bone, drowned album with pretty weak mixing, so it already kind of feels like a flood of just noise sometimes, but it's probably the weakest thing I've heard from Pixies that I can remember, and I don't remember anything on this record after 2 listens worth. It does not sink in at all. I'm going to have to give this a 2 out of 5. It's a pretty weak record in my opinion. And say I'm a big fan of Kids in Glass Houses. They have made a comeback album after their last record being 2013, if I remember correctly, being Peace, so this comeback doesn't feel too different than that, but I just kind of get the gist. A bunch of these songs just feel like they're trying to do something like the 1975 have done, but also get a little bit of Westlife and a few bits of, guess, something other than that. Just it definitely blends some of the more kind of grounded pop rock, which to an extent can have some decent moments, but throughout this record I'm just not really a big fan of it. I'm gonna have to give it a 2 out of 5. Next we have Trash Boat, Heaven Can Wait. In my opinion, Trash Boat has caused this train of devolution when it comes to the skate punk pop rock pop punk sound they used to have, and kind of traded it to push the melodic hardcore a little bit more, to now just kind of sound like they're either going for a balance of post-hardcore to metalcore. The genre change doesn't quite help, unfortunately, as I think we're getting the more generic side of the genre showing within Trash Boat's sound here. There's some decent songs. I think Burn is a nice follow from Watch Heaven, but other than that, I just find this one to be kind of dull. Tracks like Liar Liar has some of the weakest lyrics I've seen in a while that just make me think, seriously, there's no way they've written this and thought, yeah, that's perfect, but on an album, it's kind of a mess in my opinion, and I think Trash Boat, while they do have some good stuff, this definitely isn't it in my opinion. I'm going to have to give it a 2 out of 5. Magna, Mother of Millions. I wasn't quite big on this one, to be honest. I literally think it's probably just an album that's so close to being decent, but I find there's kind of a lack of a substance that makes this album feel concrete in my opinion. Each track just kind of feels like a repeated structure we've heard many times within the genre. The biggest thing that I can point out with this record is the lead singer does sound like the lead singer for 12-Foot Ninja, which I do quite like, but I just feel like I'd rather be listening to 12-Foot Ninja, because at least when they play with unique ideas, you can tell them unique ideas. Mother of Millions is kind of just doing a formula we've heard numerous times, and I'm not really that big on it, to be honest. Give it a 2 out of 5. Last of the worst albums, we have Self-Deception, Destroy the Art. In my honest opinion, I was not very big on this one. I think the biggest problem I have with Self-Deception is that the music to me just kind of feels very bland, and there's a lot of styles they can put in, there's a lot of ideas and song structures they can tamper with, but it always comes out to me as just kind of the very mainstream, kind of like what Lansdowne and what other bands that kind of had this hard rock direction go for. Even like Smash Into Pieces kind of give me a little bit of that sound, but I kind of prefer to be listening to that. I'm not saying Self-Deception is a band that hasn't got concrete ideas, but easily without a doubt a band that kicks ass live and just not quite as good in the studio. But then I think if I listen to this album live, I'd probably like it a lot more. But from what I'm listening to, I'm not that big of it. I'm going to have to give it a 2. Now moving on to the alright albums of this month. Better Lovers released a debut album, Highly Irresponsible, and I have been following Better Lovers quite a bit. I quite like their EP, but I must say with the album, I'm not really quite feeling it, to be honest, and I don't know if I'm just in the minority that feels that way, but I don't think there was really as much that enticed me. Like, the riffs are pretty good, I think that's easily the standout point of the album, but I just didn't really find much else as intriguing. It's not very catchy to me, it doesn't quite stand out as a bunch of other metalcore, sort of post-hardcore, hardcore punk bands do, as there's quite a bit to contribute to the sound here. I definitely can see why people like this one, but I don't really quite feel it, to be honest, and this is especially the fact that this has the one lead singer of the Dillinger Escape Plan, which I quite like the Dillinger Escape Plan, but I don't know, I guess Better Lovers just isn't quite doing it for me. I want to see what in store for them in the future, but Highly Responsible, yeah, I just say it's alright. I think it's just an alright album. It's nothing bad, but it certainly isn't one that I think is one I really want to go back into. Got a new one by ENMY, their self-titled album ENMY. I followed this band before they even released their debut record, Breaking Down, in 2022, and unfortunately this album is weaker than that. Breaking Down is a decently good album, one that I quite think isn't quite the best, obviously, but I still had some enjoyment with the singles that they released for it. And then ENMY, in my opinion, it just kind of feels like a slumped together mess of the same sort of sound. I don't know why this one's the self-titled album and the one before it isn't, but yeah, I feel like there is some noticeable differences compared to this and the last record, but I must say the writing isn't quite there in my opinion. I just find this album just to kind of feel like a blur. Some of the songs just feel like they're sludged together. It's not really that interesting, but it's not bad in any way. I think the songs are just like surpassable enough for me to call it just an okay record, and that's what I'm going to do. It's an alright album in my opinion. Amyl and the Sniffers, Cartoon Darkness, was a pretty average, okay experience in my opinion. I have not been the biggest fan of Amyl and the Sniffers, and the formula they've been going for doesn't feel like it's really changed from what they have done, but I think it's still got a lot of interesting things and components to it. If you're a big fan of a more pub rock, punk rock band like this, I definitely feel like there is a lot you get out of its record, and especially if you like Amyl and the Sniffers, I think this holds up for being a good Amyl and the Sniffers record, but just in my opinion, I haven't really clicked with this one as much as I wanted to, even if there's some pretty fun songs on there, like Doing In Me Head, which that one's just quite fun, and I think it definitely fits with the tongue-in-cheek this record has, and I think towards the end, something like Going Somewhere definitely is one of the better tracks that you find later on, but yeah, I haven't really been the biggest fan of this one, to be honest. We have Cemetery Skyline, Nordic Gothic, and I mean this album is alright. I think it's got some pretty interesting grooves and some instrumentation that does manage to light it up to feel like it's got some nice compelling moments, but I haven't really clicked with much of the formula that this band put out from really much of this track, to be honest. I think they've had some decent stuff on previous records, and when it comes to this, the only thing I really enjoyed or took out from it was some of the biggest singles. I quite like Violent Storm, as that one stood out to me more, and my favourite being The Coldest Heart was generally one of my favourite tracks on the week it came out. It's definitely got potential, but I just think it could have done with a little bit more. And now we finally move on to the best albums of the month. We got the brand new album by Chat Pile, Cool World. I didn't know what to expect. I've not listened to Chat Pile or really heard much about it other than it's had good reviews, and going into it, yeah, there's no shit why it doesn't have good reviews. It's immaculate in my opinion. I feel like this is an album that really pushes sludge metal and noise rock into some of the greatest it can be. You've got some really iconic moments. I mean, the first song is I Am Dog Now, and if you can't recall this track, especially the way it just repeats I Am Dog Now, is just so funny, but it's really good how everything's orchestrated. Some amazing riffs, just some overall just slumpy, heavy moments that just excel. Tracks like Shame really push the energy from the first track and onward to give you just such an amazing experience. Every single song feels so original and unique. In there, like, there's not a song that feels like it sounds like something else. Tracks like Camcorder has a slower, moodier aesthetic to it, which is quite nice. And then you get into tracks like Mask, which I like how this one just flows really nicely. It's just such a catchy song. Like, everything on this album is incredible in my opinion. And the thing is, what I've heard is this is weaker than the first album. I couldn't tell you that if it is or not, but yeah, this is still really good. This is honestly one of my favourite albums this year. It's amazing. The experience from start to finish was just insane. I'm going to give it 4.5 out of 5. Like, this definitely is an album of the year contender record for me. We got the new Allt debut record as well, another debut, and this one is quite good, but I'm not as hooked on it as I thought I would be. I think it's got some interesting elements to it, but there's not really much that feels unique in a way. You got some technical, a little electronics that kind of gives a little bit more pressure, especially the way the Orphan Breed just obliterates with the instrumentation on that one is amazing. But I find there's a lot of songs that don't really do anything wrong, but I'm just not really pulled into it as much as I wanted to be. And I've seen a lot of people say that the last 3 songs are the best 3. I will agree with Cycles being one of the best, but I don't know, I'm finding them to be some of the weaker stuff. There's some good chorus, there's some good hooks, but to me it's just kind of a standard metalcore record which has got some good elements, but it's not that engaging with me. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. It's still a good album though. We have the brand new one by The Smile, being Cutouts. Yeah, this one is actually better than Wall of Eyes in my opinion. The thing with Smiles, I haven't really been able to get into them as much. Like, the sound is good, and I don't really hate anything they've done. I've found every song to be almost enjoyable to an extent, but I've never really been fully captivated by the sound. If anything, I've always preferred Radiohead, and kind of wish we had some of the old classic writing from there back, especially the In Rainbows era. Would be nice for in return, but the band Smile's definitely doing other stuff to kind of give it a new identity. It's interesting that a lot of the songs were cut out from Wall of Eyes, yet it's been more intriguing. Zero Sum's got a fun riff and kind of plays with a bouncy palette, and then you get tracks like Colours Flying, Eyes and Mouth, which is eliminate to just some nice slower, nice art rock elements. Nothing crazy good in my opinion either, but I do like this one. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. Got the brand new album by Chubby and the Gang, and then there was, for those who don't know, I reviewed The Chisel earlier this year, and I quite like The Chisel, and like with The Chisel, that has Chubby Charles, who's the guitarist in it, but this is actually Chubby's band. After Arms Race kind of split up in 2019, we have Chubby and the Gang, and honestly, yeah, this one is pretty good, but in comparison to The Chisel, I kind of prefer what the album had going for it, as I feel like a lot of the songs on this, while the hardcore punk definitely delivers some really fun entertainment throughout the entire record, it kind of crumbles up as a kind of mush together. There's some songs that just feel so similar to other ones on here that it kind of disrupts the flow, whereas The Chisel, I think it had enough solidarity, just enough decent ideas that really felt concrete, and it could actually push out each track to feel refreshing, whereas everything's here is good, but it just kind of comes as a slump towards the end. Yeah, I think that's the only issue I had with it. It's a pretty good album other than that. I'm going to have to give it a 3.5 out of 5. We got a brand new debut album by the Barbarians of California. For those who don't know, Aaron Bruno, the lead singer of Awol Nation, has made a brand new metal-focused band. This one trying to be Awol Nation, but it feels a lot more heavier, had a lot more of the post-hardcore, new metal to metalcore elements, and that's what this album does. Is it pushes in a lot heavier narrative, having a lot more aggressive vocals, unleashing a lot harder riffs, and honestly, as much as I think Awol Nation can release some bangers every so often, I really prefer this to practically their entire discography. Even the Phantom 5 release, which I quite liked, I will say this definitely doesn't hold a candle to this. Every track is amazing. I think it's really cool how vibrant it is, and Aaron Bruner definitely has a voice suited for more this music, as I feel there's more passion. He's tried to do post-hardcore bands before, but seeing it, he's done it again with this more metal approach. Yeah, the guy's this is definitely something more suited to him, and I don't know if Wild Nation is closing its doors or curtains for the Barbarians of California. I don't know if the track Barbarian on that record was to kind of signify this, but Barbarians of California, an amazing debut. I quite like this one. It's heavy, it's gritty, and it just is overall fun, especially the punk influence here and there, especially on tracks like Where Are the Punks. I like this album a lot. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Finally, wrapping up the video, we have The Nothing That Is, the album by Fit for an Autopsy, which honestly I did think was pretty damn fun. It's been consistent, it has a lot of good deathcore, metalcore elements that combine together really nicely, and I think the juxtaposition between the two were great. I was a really big fan of Saviour of None and Ashes of All, two banging joint singles that just kicked ass, and even the first track Hostage as another really good single. A lot of the good stuff is also just throughout the record. There's not really a dull moment, but probably the only thing is that it definitely didn't hold up as nice as the singles made me believe the album would. I think you still get a good experience, but I didn't really quite get that impact of just being blown away by the riffs, the breakdowns, the heaviness as much as I did with the singles. Not a bad thing, I just think that they clearly put out their best material first in my eyes, and that's fair enough to get people hooked onto it. It's still a good listen, and definitely an album I quite enjoyed. I'll give it a 3.5 out of 5. And just like that, that is October done. There's been quite a lot to talk about, and I've had to cut off a lot of stuff that I wanted to talk about on this month. There's been numerous stuff I haven't been able to, and it's bugged me, but these things happen. I've mainly talked about the things that I had something to say, or definitely given time to give a proper listen to. So that is that, and November's coming, and before we know it, it's going to be December, where uploads won't be as frequent. There won't really be a huge amount of reviews. December's when I kind of like take this time to step away from YouTube. I still got my top 50 albums of the year, as well as the top 50 worst albums of the year, and also a albums we like to see 2025 podcast as well. So you still be getting some stuff, but it's going to be longer videos and less reviews, so that's just kind of how it is, because there's a lot of stuff I want to reflect back on this year, and this year's definitely given us some good stuff, but we still got November, we'll strive through November, and then before you know it, the holidays are here. So thank you so much for watching, and see you next video.